Um, how long has your young adult been in the program now?
I believe 2.5 years.
Feel your young adult has, what do you feel your young adult has achieved while at New Directions?
So for him, he has achieved a greater self-confidence and letting go of self-doubt, which was destabilizing. It was debilitating for him. And we're not professionals, so we didn't know how to overcome this hurdle. And because of that, he's done well in school, which was a problem for him before he started, and also now in the workforce, which is a big step. We weren't quite sure, how he would do with that, but everyone loves him. He's very gung-ho about working, and it's a good dynamic. And also the smaller steps in the beginning, he was not able to interact with anyone, including ourselves. He sat in his room for many months, and we were depressed. He's depressed. And then suddenly he has a roommate, and we were very nervous. And boy, he did very well overnight, literally, because he really wanted to change his life. So way back when, I'm forgetting a lot of the hurdles that he overcame, when he first started 2.5 years ago, that we now sort of take for granted, but it was a big deal back then, huge steps.
Do you feel your son has been able to make friends and connect with other students at New Directions?
In the beginning, everything was a little bit overwhelming, and it was not his first priority or our first priority. We wanted his mental health to be stable, and we wanted him to, not set him up for failure. So making friends wasn't on the list. However, he's a young male, and for him, it was very important. He did make friends through New Directions first, and that felt really good to be included, because in regular society, he was a little bit on the fringes, and he wasn't quite sure how to close that gap. But because New Directions was there to sort of support him and guide him when he fell down, and still be around after he fell down, it really opened up a lot of pathways for him to learn how to socialize and make genuine friends, and make choices about who he wants to be friends with.
What about the academic support? Have you been satisfied with the level of support that your son has received?
So just to back up, because you can't tell the whole story until you know what it was like before. When he first went to college, he didn't want to go far away from home, and he struggled in high school, and we didn't have the tools really to help him, and it was the blind leading the blind. So he went to a state school, and promptly failed out of most classes after the first year. And it was due to extreme anxiety and performance stress. And he wanted to get out of school. We pulled him out of school, and it was a standstill. So now with New Directions, they started very slowly with one college class at a time. And he was very nervous because he knew he had failed before. Was really break apart how he studies, how does he learn, all these things that nobody really took the time to do or knew how to do. And they figured out, they specifically figured out that it gets overwhelmed at the beginning of an assignment, and he's not able to break it down. But once he breaks it down, he got all straight A's. So after the first semester of taking a single class, they bumped it up to 2 classes, and now he can take 2-3 classes at a time. He's not at like 4 classes a semester, or some people take 5 classes, but he can take 2 to 3 difficult classes and function okay.
And he's working now. He has a job.
And now he's working. He is taking a break from school, and he is very attached to his tutors at New Directions. So He was doing very well in school, but the second he did not lean on the tutors as heavily, he was fumbling a little bit. So we thought, you know what, don't be so hard on yourself. Take a break. This isn't a linear kind of a progress. You're going to have good days, bad days. Take a break. And he was very nervous to get a job, and he almost did not work, but we were able to convince him to work, and he just loves it. He loves it. So he's so happy. He may or may not go back to school. We're sort of at a fork in the road, but these are all excellent decisions that my husband and I are so thrilled that he's making, whether he should go back to school or whether he should work, versus how do we get him out of his bedroom, which is what was happening 2.5 years ago.
Do you think the clinical support and vocational support was helpful in terms of not only being able to get your son a job, but allowing him to maintain the job and be successful?
Absolutely. And in terms of the job, we did not want him working somewhere that New Directions was not affiliated with, just because we weren't. He failed. So I knew that with New Directions support, if something occurs and he makes a mistake and they want to fire him, they won't do it because they're going back and forth with New Directions staff, and they will give him a second chance. So that was critical in our decision in terms of having him work, at a job. And we were preparing for the worst, but hoping for the best. And we couldn't have done it without New Directions. He would have been fired right away.
What about the behavioral interventions that we use at New Directions? What are your thoughts on those?
So it's very interesting in that in the beginning, I didn't like it at all, because this was my baby. And if he overspent on his budget for food and ran out for the week from his bank account, ran out of money, my first inclination would be to give him money. I'd yell and scream and do all sorts of antics and stuff like that. It would be very dramatic, but at the end of the day, I would give him money. And the first day this occurred, while he was at New Directions, you called me and said, listen, he ran out of money. He's got to wait a couple of days, and he will figure things out. And so I thought, oh my God, my son is going to starve. And that was the furthest thing from the truth. And what I learned is, not only did he learn from your behavioral training and guidance, but I also learned that I was making decisions that made me feel better, that made my life easier, but I was really enabling him. And so that was a big eye opener, because I thought, I'm the best parent around and I'm doing the best I can. But it was a learning experience for both the parents and the child.
Was your son in a program prior to New Directions, or was this the first program?
He was in so many programs, I can't even tell you, in terms of social skills enhancement and in terms of treating his anxiety and depression. And then at college, just trying to help him navigate schoolwork and socializing. He was in many. Is that it was all piecemeal. So the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing. And then it didn't last too long. It wasn't reinforced. So in New Directions, he was literally, it was all 24/7 all around him. There was no escaping it.
So how do you feel that New Directions is different or unique in comparison to other programs that you're studying?
Yep. So I feel that you're submerged in a new dynamic, new coping skills. You're out of your comfort zone. Your brain has to develop new skills. And for our family, we were not helping the situation because we're just not professionals in this area. And we're great parents and everything, but we didn't know what we were doing. We thought at the time we knew what we were doing. So he really had to be away, but he had to be away from us in a safe place that really supported him every single day and let him know that you're not going to get kicked out of this program for doing your best or for falling down because you weren't able to cope with the situation, or you did something wrong. We are going to stick with you, and because of that, in return, for the long haul, you're going to sort of pick up all of these different skills. He was very nervous that you would kick him out in the beginning, and he's been kicked out of other programs.
Right. Have you been how do you feel about the amount of communication that you've had with your son's therapist and other staff members? Do you feel that staff are responsive? Do you feel that there's been open and consistent communication?
So for us, what are we getting into? And but because of that intervention, and he had, I think, sessions twice a week, or was it 2 or 3 times a week he had, and we had a weekly session, and happening all at once because there was a few things to address. But slowly things fell by the wayside because he was able to learn new skills. So some of the intervention wasn't needed any longer, and now it's a good sign that he is slowly weaning himself off of the program. We only meet with a therapist for a half hour, with his therapist for a half hour, just to help ourselves learn how to handle certain situations with him. And we don't really need to have it, but for me, it's critical. And you can customize your own program depending on what your needs are. And so for us, it's a good thing where he has a session once a week and a clinical outcome kind of thing. And then we have a session for half an hour with the therapist alone. It works for us.
Is there anything else that you would like to say about New Directions, or anything that you feel would be beneficial for other parents to know?
Yes, the big learning lesson, the big takeaway for me is that no matter how good of a parent you are, and no matter how much you're trying to connect with your child, you have baggage from the last 18, 20, 25 years of raising this person. And if you can let someone else take over who doesn't have any skin in the game, who is more neutral, then chances are you will make a lot of very good progress. It's not that you're a bad parent. It's just that the energy is different. The dynamic is different. And that's what they feel. And they still know that their parents love them, but they deal with life very, very differently.
Well, Monica, thank you so much. I really,
That was
really
very easy for me.